So good morning, everyone. Welcome to Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario's webinar on managing your money during challenging times, a guide for seniors. We're so pleased today to be hosting this session with Credit Canada. And our speaker, Richard Haggins, is going to be sharing his wealth and experience in this area with his years of experience with us today. Before we begin, I'd like to provide our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we gather on the traditional territory of a number of First Nations and acknowledge their stewardship throughout the land, throughout the ages. We seek a new relationship with the original peoples of this land, one that is based in honor and deep respect. I just want to give a few housekeeping items before we begin. Everyone will be muted during the webinar, and the speakers and ASL interpreters will be visible during the session today. Just as a reminder for those who want to make the visual larger on your screen for the ASL interpreters, you can move the screen larger by dragging the line between the speaker and your PowerPoint over to make the image larger. You can also pin them on your screen or just put in speaker view, or depending on how you want to view it on your own screen. There are options available. I will turn on, I just realized I hadn't turned on the captions, so I will turn that on as well for people to see the closed captioning as well. We encourage you to put messages in the chat box if you want to let us know where you're joining us from today. We do get people joining us from different parts of the provinces and different parts of Canada and beyond borders. So it's always nice to see where people are coming from. If you have a specific question along the way for our speaker, please post that in the question box or the Q&A box, and we'll get to those at the end of the session. We are recording the session. It will be available along with the PowerPoint onto our website either by the end of day or tomorrow for people to access. And we also encourage you to complete our evaluation. We have a link. We also have a QR code for people to use as well that we'll be showing at the end to make it easier. So if you have a cell phone available, you can scan the code and then it gets you right to the evaluations to make it a little bit easier for people to complete and a more quick time frame, I guess, for people. Sometimes we do forget to do those evaluations, and they are important. Your feedback is important to us, so we're trying to make it accessible for people to complete those sessions or those evaluations. Just a reminder around respecting people's privacy and confidentiality. We do appreciate that this is a public forum. If you have a personal circumstance or issue that you'd like to talk to us further, more in a confidential manner, please reach out to myself or the speaker after the session, and we'd be more than pleased to assist you. But you can post questions, as I said, in the Q&A box, and we encourage you to do that as well. For those who are joining us for the first time, just a little bit about who we are as an organization. So Elder Abuse Ontario we're a nonprofit organization, and our mission really is to make sure that seniors are free from abuse and have a voice and feel safe and respected in their communities and their homes and across the province. We work together with our partners to raise awareness, deliver education and training, and work collaboratively with agencies and organizations to improve our response and advocacy to elder abuse prevention. In 2003, we worked with our Ontario government to given the mandate to implement Ontario's strategy to combat elder abuse. So we are accountable to the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility, and they fund the strategy. And we work within three main pillars of that strategy, and which is public education and awareness, the training, and that collaboration and coordination of services. There's a lot of activities that go under each of those pillars. I encourage you to check out our website and for further information, all the resources and that we've developed and videos. We're constantly doing new things, so it's nice just to check in to see what's going on. And if you're not already on our mailing list to get updates on things that are happening in our newsletter, I encourage you to do that, and you can sign up on our website as well. So let's get beginning with our session today. So we're so pleased to have Richard Haggins, who's the Senior Education Facilitator with Credit Canada, the Debit Solutions. So Richard has been working there for quite some time. Just a little bit about the Credit Canada Debit Solutions. Debt Solutions is a nonprofit or counseling service serving individuals and families experiencing personal financial difficulties since 1966. So it's a longstanding organization. Richard has been working in the credit counseling industry since 2006 and has been working in the area of credit and debit education since 2007. So as a workshop facilitator, he's presented many of these sessions, and for a variety of organizations, nonprofit, government, labor unions, and the general public. However, since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, he's has overseen the transition of the Credit Canada's educational efforts from in-person to virtual. And as we all know, that's been a huge transition for everybody. We do miss the in-person sessions, but we do appreciate the opportunity for Richard to come here today to share his experience with us virtually. And we're so pleased that you're going to share, basic practical tips and strategies to help people manage their money from a senior's perspective. So without further ado, I am going to stop my screen and allow Richard to take on the presentation. So please enjoy, and if you want to take notes, you can, but as I said, this was recorded and you can join after if you miss something as well.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me in the first place. It's great to be here, and for all the attendees out there, thank you very much for taking the time to listen to what I have to say. I hope that what I have to say will in some way be helpful or informative, or you're going to get something useful out of what we're going to talk about here. I'm hoping you can all see my title slide there. As you can see, we call this presentation Managing Your Money During Challenging Times, a guide for seniors. And it is part of Financial Literacy Month 2022. If you are not aware, I would imagine you are aware, but November is Financial Literacy Month in Canada. And so during this month, there are a variety of presentations and things that are going on to try to help people know a bit more about managing their finances. Last thing before I get into the slide deck, I need to thank the Canadian Bankers Association, and specifically their Your Money Seniors group, for providing some of the information that we were going to use in today's presentation. So anyway, again, I do like questions. So when we get through the slide deck, I hope if you have questions, we'll take a look at those questions in a bit. But first, okay, here's our agenda for today. We have 3 parts. So we start things off with a look at money management in retirement, income and expenses. Then we have a look at preparing for uncertain times. And finally, we wrap up with a section on financial abuse of seniors. So in our first part here, we're going to be looking at personal finances, and I'm often referring to the financial priority pyramid created by Bruce Sellery for his Moolah Law series of books. I'll just let you know that Bruce Sellery is the CEO of Credit Canada, so it was easy to get permission to use his creation for our presentations. Now, for any type of pyramid that reflects a hierarchy, you've got to have the base in place to support the upper levels. So that we're going to apply that in today's presentation. We're really just going to look at the 2 bottom levels, cash flow and debt, and seeing that they're sorted out. So our first step in the pyramid, money management in retirement, is all about cash flow. So let's take a look at cash flow issues. Now, I do a lot of presentations. As Rayanne said, well, to tell you the truth, I do about 250 presentations a year, and I talk to a lot of different groups. In presentations that are geared toward working age groups, I have a different focus in the area of income. I talk more about issues like tax liabilities, for example. But here, when we're talking about income in retirement, we'll start with an acknowledgement that for many people, income in the retirement years is coming from some pretty obvious sources. The pensions, both public and private pensions, a drawdown of investments in accounts like RRSPs, TFSAs, tax-free savings accounts, and other registered or non-registered investment accounts. So there might be other income, but that is, for many seniors, that's where the income is coming from. Now, many of my slides, I'm borrowing information from the Canadian Bankers Association. This is one of the slides that the Canadian Bankers Association provided. And we're starting off with a look at the subject of deferring pensions. Now, I know this slide has a lot of information on it, a lot of information and a lot of numbers. And I know that this presentation is being recorded. So you have the chance later, you can go back, watch the recording, find this slide, pause the recording. If you want to go over and look at all the numbers, you can do that. So what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to go and read all the numbers. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about what the numbers mean. So this slide shows how much money per month you're entitled to if you can hold off, if you can delay collecting old age security and Canada Pension Plan or Quebec Pension Plan, CPP or QPP. So on the slide, it shows, for example, old age security. Deferring 5 years can mean the difference between, about $6,600 a year and about $9,000 per year. And likewise for CPP, the chart shows you can take CPP at age 60 and have a lower amount. You can wait until 65, take it for a regular amount. And then you can wait until you are 70. And if you wait until you're 70, then your pension will be, I believe it says there, 142% of the basic entitlement. By the way, the numbers here on the slide are average numbers. So for some people, they're higher, some people, they're lower. They are just looking at some basic average numbers here. The maximum amount you can receive is reached when you turn 70. And the slide also shows the same calculations for the Quebec Pension Plan. Okay, and I have a drink of water here. There we are. Very nice. Water is good. If you're a speaker, water is great. Okay, this slide covers a few basic points about income sources. So in retirement, you have multiple sources of income, as I've already mentioned. That's point one. Point number two, you need to convert your RRSP to an RRIF in the year that you turn 71 years old. You need to actually apply for CPP and OAS and also the Guaranteed Income Supplement, GIS. Point four, I've already mentioned, waiting until 70 for CPP and OAS means that you get more. And now let's look at point number five. As it says, your house can earn you income. So the idea here, you could rent out part of it to generate rental income, or you could also consider borrowing money against the value of your home through a home equity line of credit, also called a HELOC, which is abbreviation, home equity line of credit or HELOC, or a reverse mortgage, and that will allow you to tap into the equity that you've built up in your home. Now, here's the next thing for us to take a look at. Do you plan to keep working in retirement? So if you are planning to do so, you need to understand how it might impact any benefits you are receiving, and possibly it may also affect your private pension plan. Now, specifically, I want to mention the effect on the old age pension. So once your income is over a certain amount, the value of your old age pension is reduced at a rate of 15 cents for every dollar of income over this amount. I was asked recently, so what is the point at which this reduction starts? And I checked into it. It is about $81,700 is the point where, and it's called the clawback. So the clawback starts at 81,700. And the clawback is complete. It takes all your money if your income is up about $134,000. So if you have more than $134,000 in income, then you will not receive the old age security. It will be completely taken back. Now, Canada Pension Plan, you can work while you receive public benefits like Canada Pension Plan. You and your employer will still be making can still be making contributions, but those contributions will increase the amount that you are paid later on. Now, up to now, we're looking at the income side. Now, next we go to the spending side. And this is another area where the focus changes from what I would normally talk about with people who are in the earlier stages of their life and in their earning years. As you can imagine, for millennials, young adults, their housing costs, their mortgages, their rent, their property taxes, and so on, they are a really huge factor in weighing their personal finances. They may also be dealing with repayments of student loans, replacing their vehicles more often, dealing with loan or lease payments on their vehicles, and so on. So they may have a lot more in the area of fixed expenses. Now, hopefully in the retirement years, the fixed expenses have become less predominant in your budgets. So this is going to be an area where I will say you still have to pay close attention, but we hope this area is not the big budget wrecker that it had been in an earlier time. Another comparison with younger Canadians, we've observed that when the fixed expenses are being paid out of their bank accounts, pre-authorized payments out of the checking account, and that drains the financial resources of individuals or families. And then people are left with no recourse other than they have to use credit cards, lines of credit to cover many of the expenses that we're classifying as variable. And you can see a sample list on this slide. So for seniors, we would definitely consider it to be a danger signal to be running up a balance on credit cards for spending on items like groceries, personal care products, gasoline, and so on. Okay, now let's go back to that pyramid again and shift our attention to the next area for today, debt issues, and also dealing with unexpected challenges in life. So first, debt issues. Now, nowadays, debt is a fact of life. It's become much more acceptable in society to carry debt, and with lower interest rates that we've had in recent years, it's become relatively cheap to carry debt. So people see debt as being a normal thing. It happens. Now, not surprisingly, more and more seniors are carrying debt into the retirement years. As it mentions on the slide, 1 in 3 retirees in Canada are carrying some form of debt. That can include mortgages, credit cards, lines of credit, and so on. And the big problem with debt in retirement is that you have a fixed income, and that makes it hard to make big payments to get rid of debt. So paying off debts absolutely has to be built into the budget. And another big risk, if interest rates increase, the cost of credit increases, and so would your payments. Now, this next slide, rising rates and the cost of debt, It also has a lot of information, and thank you to the Canadian Bankers Association. And also on the slide at the bottom, it says source Financial Consumer Agency of Canada. So they are the ones who created the information on this slide. On the slide, it shows just a small increase in rates, even a 1% or a 3% increase in rates can push up your monthly payments substantially. And these increased costs, they can eat into other important areas of your budget: food, shelter, and so on. And it can make it easier, it can make it harder to make ends meet. Sorry, I don't know why I said easier. It make it harder to make ends meet. So if you have debt, it's a good idea to talk to your lender about how much your payments would go up if rates were to rise. And it is a good idea to have a cushion for coping with increased payments. If not, then you might want to make a plan for getting rid of the debt faster. On the slide here, it does show for that example mortgage where they show a payment right now $1,400, and then with the rising rates, it goes up to 1,500 and then to 1,800. And again, that's money coming right out of the food budget, the gasoline budget, the clothing budget, and so on. So again, rising rates, very scary for people who have debt. Now, the next slide here, after I have another drink of water. So I work for a credit counseling service. And so the people that are there, they are credit counselors. So when credit counselors walk through a client's finances, they go in a certain order when they're trying to figure out the best option or best options for clearing off debt. And on this slide here, I show the 4 financial areas that need to be looked at to determine the course of action. So we have on the left income and expenses, and on the right, assets and debts. So income first, a few questions. Is the income adequate to cover basic needs? Is the client struggling with shelter, food, clothing, medical, transportation, and other costs? Is their income dependable or is it irregular? In the expense area, where's the money going out to? Is there any room for improvement in this area? Then over on the asset side, are there any significant assets? And if so, can they be used to deal with debt issues? And finally, the debts themselves. How bad are the debts? Are the balances high, but are they up to date? Or sorry, are they high, but also up to date? Or are there already problems with creditors? So these are all areas that the credit counselor has to take into consideration when deciding how to deal with debts in retirement. And now let's talk about change, and let's talk about the unexpected. So what sort of things can change? On the slide here, pretty straightforward. The first bubble, health, age, capacity. All these factors can change what your care needs are, whether you can live independently. Maybe you might get sick. You might require treatment or medication. That's one thing. The next bubble, death of a spouse. The death of a spouse is obviously a major emotional hardship for anyone. It also affects your financial life severely. Many men and women can expect to experience a drop in income on the death of a spouse, whether we're talking about estate taxes, loss of pension income, loss of job income, and women in particular. Statistics Canada has looked at the financial impact that widowhood has, and it showed a couple of interesting things. 51% of widowed men suffered a loss of income, but 72% of women suffered a loss of income after the death of a spouse. And the last bubble on this slide, unexpected financial hardship. So things that can dramatically affect your finances in retirement come from unexpected events. Things just happen. Your car breaks down, your basement is flooded, different things happen. And these are things that knowing what to do when things happen is very important. Talk to your spouse, talk to a professional advisor about ways to make sure you can handle change. Now, my next slide, here we have 4 ways to prepare for the unexpected. So point number 1, save. The first and best thing you can do is to make sure you're ready for a rainy day, and that means saving. Put aside some extra money to help you cover a major expense during retirement. You can also talk to your bank and make sure that you're covered by a line of credit in case you need money fast. Next thing, point number 2, do your homework. Make sure you have a power of attorney for property and health care in place, and obtain legal advice to make sure it's properly drafted. Point number 3, make a plan. Make sure that your need for emergency savings is reflected in your overall budget. And point number 4, insurance. Consider that in retirement, you may not have the private health coverage that you had when you were employed, and you may need to consider possible costs related to health. Now, that has taken us through 2 out of 3 areas. Our final area for today is we're going to look at the subject of financial abuse of seniors. So first, I get a bit more water. That's very nice. Okay. Just a reminder that the information in the following slides is taken from the Canadian Bankers Association has a program called Your Money Seniors. And in the Your Money Seniors, they have a module called Financial Abuse. It's very, very good. We thank the Canadian Bankers Association for this material. And let's take a walk through the information that they've given us for today. So first, what is financial abuse? So financial abuse occurs when someone tries to take or control what belongs to you for their own benefit, not yours. This can include your money, your property, your personal information, and so on. Financial abuse is unethical, and in many cases, it is also illegal. And a very important point, financial abuse is usually perpetrated by somebody that you know, and often somebody very close to you. Seniors are more at risk for financial abuse. And why is that? So some key points here. First, seniors have finite financial resources. When you're on a fixed income, money that is stolen or possessions that are stolen, that affects your quality of life, sometimes for the rest of your life. It's not just about the money, it's also about the quality of life. And people on a fixed income, they have a harder time making up for losses. The next point, dependency. As people age, they often become more dependent on other people for support and assistance in their lives. So you may have professional caregivers, family members, friends, and these people are placed in positions where they have access to or control over the senior's home, money, and possessions. The next point, isolation. So seniors are sometimes they are isolated by health, death within their circles, their social circles, mobility issues. And this makes it hard for people to reach out to experts or other trusted people for advice, and it makes them vulnerable to financial abuse. And one more point here, money and health. Money and health are linked. So losing money through financial abuse, that can have an impact on your ability to stay healthy. Now, our following slides here, we have some areas of forms of financial abuse. And we're looking at how the financial abuse, how it can happen. So first on this slide, we're going to talk about power of attorney, which I will often abbreviate to POA. So when I say POA, power of attorney. So the POA is a very important tool for seniors to have in place. In the event of illness or incapacity, you don't want to be worrying about what will happen to your finances if you can't manage them yourself. And having a PO in place can help with that. However, it is something that can be abused. If you have a will, you might also already have a power of attorney, that legal document that gives someone else the legal right to act on your behalf. And people who have a POA, they have a lot of power. So financial abuse occurs when that power is used to benefit the person holding the POA. That person, we call them the attorney. So not like a lawyer attorney, a different type of attorney, but the person holding the POA, they're using that power to benefit themselves. That is financial abuse. So this slide here looks at what to consider when choosing a person to be your power of attorney. So it's very important to ask someone that you trust. You can appoint anyone as your attorney. Your spouse, a family friend, family member. Remember, you are giving this person the right to manage your money and your properties. So you have to make sure you pick the right person who will have your best interests at heart. And here are some points on the slide, things to consider when choosing a legal attorney. So personal suitability, obviously, trustworthiness. Yes, trustworthiness, of course. Experience. We don't want to give it to somebody who has very little experience. Availability. That's important. They have to be around. They have to be able to step in when you need to have something done. Reliability. And finally, willingness. You have to find somebody who's willing to do it, right? So there's the 6. You see them there on the slide. And let's take a look at something else. And that is the subject of joint bank accounts. So a joint bank account is an account under 2 names. Both people have access to the funds. It's considered a joint asset. So opening a joint account may be one way to have someone help you pay bills, manage your money, but there are risks. If you open or make existing accounts joint with a family member or a caregiver, then you make that person a co-owner of the funds in the account. Now, that arrangement may be harmless if the other person is trustworthy and follows your wishes. But if not, an abuser can take over the funds in a joint account and use them for their benefit, not yours. And so on the next, actually, before I go to the next slide, just a personal comment here that when my mother was in the nursing home, she's now passed away, but I am an only child. And so I had power of attorney for my mother. And we also made all of her bank accounts joint. So if somebody is trustworthy, and I was trustworthy, then it can work out well. But you have to choose your power of attorney well. Next, a few more examples of forms of financial abuse. So first, it's a very simple: theft. Obviously, theft of your money or your possessions. That's very easy to understand. Forging your signature on financial documents. Now, that may be harder to detect because you may not know immediately that it's occurred. It could be somebody who's forged your name on a will or a POA or a check or something else. If it's not a question of forging your signature, maybe it's a question of tricking you or forcing you to sign a contract or a legal document. Again, wills, powers of attorney, and so on. Other things we mentioned here on this slide, a refusal to return borrowed property or borrowed money. So for example, a family member or a friend may borrow your car and then refuse to return it to you. And one more point here before we move on, exploitation by service providers. Exploitation could be overcharging. It could be doing unnecessary work. As an example, a contractor comes in to do some painting in your home. Maybe they ask for all the money up front and they get all the money first, then they don't finish the job. Or maybe the price at the end of the work, maybe it seems higher than what you expected. They tell you, oh, we need to do more. We have to get more money. This can be financial abuse as well. Our next slide, we get into looking at potential red flags, warning. And you can see the bullet points on the slide there. First, sudden changes in living arrangements, where perhaps a senior is suddenly moving out of their home all of a sudden, and the home is quickly sold by one of the family members. That could potentially be financial abuse. Sudden changes in beneficiaries for wills, confusion about where money is disappearing to, where seniors' property is disappearing to, especially valuable items. They're disappearing, perhaps they're being sold. Again, this is all red flags that if these are happening, something to notice, pay attention to. A few more red flags. Costly or unnecessary repairs or purchases, newly created joint accounts, especially newly created joint accounts with people who are fairly new acquaintances. That's a big red flag. Unpaid bills are not being paid, or the senior says they're suddenly short of money and they never used to be. Pressured to sign documents that an individual doesn't understand, and that can include powers of attorney, wills, and so on. So if you suspect financial abuse is occurring, what should you do about it? And here are some recommendations. First, talk to somebody, tell someone, talk to someone you trust, tell them what's happening. A lot of people are too embarrassed to actually admit that they feel like they're being taken advantage of. And again, often it's from a close relative as well, or close friend. So people are embarrassed to talk about that. Get help. From who? Could be call the police, talk to a lawyer, even just talk to somebody at a local senior center and ask them if they can give you an idea of who can help you with this. If it's a question of somebody who is your POA, remember this: a power of attorney can be revoked, and you can demand a full accounting of all financial transactions that have gone on. A couple more comments here. Talk to your bank or financial institution. If you think that somebody is taking money from your bank account, they're draining your bank account or misusing your credit cards, let your bank know. They can help shut down that activity. And our final point on this slide, get distance. If you can, do whatever you can do to push the abuser away from you physically and emotionally and mentally. If there's somebody who is coming to your home and they have a key, change the locks. Maybe you need to actually change the locks. And just remember, financial abuse is a violation of your rights. It is not your fault. You can get help. And our next slide is about where to get help. So some ideas. First, other family members may be able to help. Next, there are organizations across Canada, and I'm going to mention here the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. And if you want more information, I'm going to recommend you do an internet search for Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. You'll find they're a very, very useful organization. And I believe I have their link in this slide close to the end. But anyway, they may be able to help. The police, reporting to the police will help them keep track of the number of cases, and perhaps even there may be a charge of fraud. Your bank or financial institution can help, but they have limits on what they can do depending on the situation. It's important to ensure that you access help from your bank and others as well. I have a few tips here, key tips for preventing financial abuse. And it's something very important. The best way to deal with something like financial abuse is to prevent it from happening in the first place. You know that the old expression, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Okay, it applies here. So steps you can take to protect yourself so financial abuse doesn't happen in the first place. Point number one, choose a trusted person to be your attorney for your power of attorney. Be very clear with them about your wishes and understand how POAs work and what it means before you sign. Point number two, get legal advice. Make sure that your interests are protected. Don't be pressured into signing documents without consulting a trusted expert. Point number three, very important, protect your PIN numbers. Never give away your PIN numbers on your financial accounts. Don't write them down. Don't leave them where other people can find them. That's something for you to protect very, very carefully. Point number four, stay in touch with your bank. Consult with your bank when making important decisions about joint bank accounts or giving someone else the authority to do your banking for you. So, see what your bank has to say about that before you make decisions. And we have points 5, 6, and 7. Point number 5, very important. Open your own mail and pay your own bills for as long as you can. Okay. Also, check your bank and your credit card statements carefully every month and look for transactions that you didn't do. You can also monitor your accounts or credit card transactions by phone. So again, check with your bank about that. Point number 6, keep all your important financial and legal documents in a safe and secure place. And point number 7, I would just say, write it down. Write it down. If you are lending or giving money or a possession to someone, keep a written record, preferably a formal written agreement that the borrower has to sign. That way, okay, everybody, we all are on the same page. There's no misunderstandings there, right? Now, this slide here provides some very useful links. And I will just provide what we have here. First off, there is the Canadian Bankers Association. A reminder that this presentation is being recorded. And so if you're watching this later as a recording, pause the presentation at this point, and you can copy down Canadian Bankers Association. There we are, www.cba.ca. I also mentioned the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada. That is a part of the Government of Canada. So your tax dollars pay for that. Again, that's a very good website to go and visit for a lot of information about personal finances. Finally, the Canadian Bankers Association, who've provided many of the slides in the slide deck, have given a link here to the CBA's Fraud Prevention Tip newsletter. And you can sign up for that, www.cba.ca/fraud. Now, we are up to the point where we're going to take a look at questions. And so we have the questions and comments. And finally, before I wrap up the slide deck, I will mention that at the end of the slide deck, we have a slide that mentions Credit Canada. That's the organization that I work for. We are a nonprofit credit counseling service. I hope you never need to talk to a credit counselor because our clients are people who have money problems. But you can also visit our website for a lot of good information, and that's at www.creditcanada.com. And I hope that was actually useful. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to change over to see what kind of questions we have. And I'm going to stop sharing my slide deck at this point. Okay, and where did those questions go? Here they are.
Thanks, Richard. That was awesome. Very informative. I think there was lots of tips, and I was trying to put some things in the chat box for people to link to some of the resources, not only within our website, but CBA as well as your own. So
Right.
if people didn't have a chance to link on those, I'll put those on the website with the recording as well, just in case. So, but we do have some really good questions.
Great.
So the first one is just goes back to, I think, when you were talking about couples and relationships. So how does it work in a couple relationship and marriage if one person is retired and one person is still working? Does the income count for both situations?
Oh, I think we're probably talking about the clawback, the old age security clawback.
I think so, because that's, yes, I think so.
And I believe it is based on family. Wait a minute here. That's a good one, because I was just thinking that is it based on family income? I'm not actually sure about that one. I was because I was looking up specifically for somebody who was actually a widow, and I would actually need to go back and check that one. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for that. Oh, I see. Okay, somebody out there has answered that old age security is based on family income. So thank you very much. One of the other participants has just answered that in the chat. And CPP, there is no clawback of CPP, of course. The clawback is on old age security. CPP is something that you paid into. That's your money. And you could have $1 million a year in investment income, but you're still entitled to your CPP. No clawback whatsoever there.
Okay. The other question was related to old age security. So my understanding is that you automatically receive OAS at age 65 unless you defer it to age 70. Is that still valid?
I was under the impression you have to apply for the old age security. Actually, true disclosure here. I've just turned 65 earlier this month, so happy birthday me. Earlier this year I went through the application process, and my pension will start at the end of next month. I'm going to keep working for a while yet. I'm not ready to quit, but yeah, I had to apply for it. So I don't think it starts automatically. If anybody is like, if anybody's out there thinking, no, then let me know in the chat. But I had to apply. So.
Yeah, somebody did write that you have to apply, but I thought you had to as well.
Yeah,
so
I actually, Susan's commented that yes, that they did actually. It was about 11 months before my birthday I got something in the mail from the government, and it was like, yes, here's your forms. So yeah, she's right. Yes, she's correct.
Okay. There was also one. If you start to collect CPP and then resume employment, can you stop collecting CPP and resume later?
There's a good one. I'm actually going to be collecting CPP, but I'm going to still be paying into it. That's a question I would want to run past somebody in HR to find out whether or not could you start to collect and then you go back to work. I think actually I think that what she's got there in the question is right, that yeah, once you've turned the tap on, you can't shut it back off again. Like, you've already said, okay, I want to start taking it from 60 or 65. And then you find a job at 66 and you're like, I'm back in the workforce. But yeah, it's like once the tap is turned on, I think it doesn't turn off.
Okay. So there was just a comment, there's no point contributing to CPP once you collect CPP. If you resume employment income, then you opt to not contribute to CPP.
What I'd understood was that if you're working between the ages of 65 and 70, which is my case, that they've already indicated this is what I would be receiving as my CPP pension now. But the fact that I'm still contributing means that I guess once a year they reassess, and then that it bumps up what you would be getting because you're still contributing. That's what I've been told. So again, and that seems to be reflected in what the information I got from the Canadian Bankers Association. So I'm going to assume that that's correct. Now that's something I would probably want to run past. Okay, so and I see somebody saying that's how it works with my husband as well. So I guess I'm not the only one who's like past 65 and is like still out in the workforce. So
there's a lot of questions around old age security and Canada Pension Plan, and we usually do a session early February, just around getting ready for tax season and some of these questions. So this just gives me motivation to get that booked, because there's a lot of questions, because things change all the time, particularly around benefits and timeframes. So I'll look into booking a session around that, because there seems to be a lot of interest in that. Does anybody have any other questions you can post? I just wondered, while we're waiting, Richard, if you wanted to just talk a little bit about the financial readiness kit that Canada, or Credit Canada and CBA have put together. Because there's two, there's one for seniors and one for women. So, and I know you spoke about women.
There's actually 4 of them.
Okay.
And so those were not actually a CBA. That was actually just all us.
Okay.
Some of the people that was done in-house. There's 4. There's a general one. There's one for youth. There's one for women. There's one for seniors. And the idea there is what we're doing is we're trying to draw on our expertise. Again, remember that Credit Canada, education is part of what we do, but we're a credit counseling service. And as a credit counseling service, what we do is we see the bad part of personal finances. We talk to people who are they're struggling, they're having issues. They may be credit and debt related, they may be budget related, but anyway, the people that we talk to they're struggling, they're having problems. So that's sort of the knowledge base that we collect over time. We've seen what sort of issues are specific to particular groups, and we thought that for Financial Literacy Month 2022, what we would do is we would put something out there. And I think that you had just provided the link to our website then, or did I see that going out in the chat? There we are. Okay, fair enough. Yes, I did see you put that out there. So I think that anybody who might be interested, rather than having me blathering on about this, how about just if you're interested, feel free to click the link. I encourage people to be curious. Like when people say, "Well, here's an interesting link," I know I'm curious. Click the link. Ask yourself what's out there. Maybe it's useful for you. Maybe it's not. Maybe you wasted a few minutes. But still, the more you look, the more you find.
There was just a question about where you might advise people or suggest that people get financial advice or planning for retirement. Would that be at a bank or a financial planner or a counseling agency such as yours, or what would you suggest?
So I would say if you have a financial planner, if you have access to a financial planner, that would be a good start. I mean, that is their job. An agency such as ours is more, we're dealing with people who they've got problems. Okay, so our job is to really get them to the point where drag them out of the problem situation, and then at that point there's other people that would be more appropriate to speak to than to us. So yeah, I guess I'm going to say the financial planner. Okay. I see there was something there in the question about how do we remember our PIN if we don't write it down, and I just, again, a little bit of honesty here. I come from a family where Alzheimer's hits all of us. Okay, it's just like if we live long enough, it's just in our future, and so I've seen plenty of that. And I know there's going to be a point where, yeah, I much as I can say, it would be better to not write stuff down. But I know damn well there'll be a point where I will be writing stuff down. That's just, it is. I mean, the thing is, like, you want to, if you write it down, you want to keep it someplace where it's not so easy for people to find. True story here. A few years ago, I won't get too far into the details, but I heard a story of somebody who wrote her PIN number for her debit card. She wrote the number on the debit card. So actually physically on the debit card, the PIN number was there, and one of her family members got a hold of the card and went through $5,000 of her money. And the bank said, I'm sorry, but you're totally liable. Like, we're not, you wrote the PIN number on the card. I'm sorry, you're out the $5,000. Too bad. So yeah, that's not a good story, but all the same though, it's reality, right? So
There's just one last question just around financial abuse. So what happens if the financial predator is the child, so I'm assuming adult child, who has complete control over the elder person? The person feels dependent on the child who's abusing them, but doesn't want to press charges for fear of losing support for that person.
Yeah, that's there isn't a good answer to that question, is there? I mean, it's like it's reality that for some people their own children are going to be the problem. I'd like to say, in a perfect world, you would have other kids, or you would have somebody else in the family who you could rely on. Maybe talk to somebody at a senior center and see if there's anybody you could turn to other than the child who's robbing you blind. But yeah, I don't have a perfect answer for that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand if the older person is still capable or not capable. There's a lot of issues or things that surround that kind of situation. If it's the person's is capable and it's their choice not to press charges, then we do have to respect that. But we can provide support and information to let them know what their rights are, because a lot of times people don't recognize what's happening. And then if it's a person's incapable, then there's different alternatives to getting some legal support, or the public guardian trustee involved as well. So, so there was.
I would like to just acknowledge a comment that's in the chat where a person has mentioned, when I refer to government, it'd be a good idea to be specific about which level of government you mean. Good point there. I recognize sometimes where I've got a limited amount of time to convey. I've got like this much information and this much time, and so sometimes I sort of speak economically, shall we say. But yeah, you're totally correct there that when I'm mentioning government, I should be more specific about which form of government, who are we talking about there. And by the way, thank you very much for mentioning that in your area, wherever that may be, the United Way does have a financial assistance program and advisor. Great. Publicize information like that. That is great. Anyway, I'll shut up at this point.
No, that's great. I thought I had it on the right slide, but I didn't. Sorry, I apologize for skipping. Just to give the contact information again, for the credit counselor and for Richard, if you want to connect with him directly, that's his contact information, and the website for the organization. As again, I said, there's lots of tools on the website that you can download for free and have access to that. And you can even do budgeting online. There's calculators. It's a really good resource for you. So I do thank you, Richard, for sharing this. This has been helpful, and it's hard to cover everything in an hour, but you did a great job. I do want to let people know we do have a series of webinars coming up just before the holiday season, but we do have one on Thursday around dementia. So Richard just did mention about dementia and Alzheimer. So we do have two speakers from the Laura Tamblin-Watts from CanAge and Kathy Barrick from the Alzheimer's Society of Ontario, talking around the new reports around dementia and things about we need to do around planning and minimizing risk. And it'll be a very informative session. So I encourage you to join up for that. And we also have one the following week around interventions, talking about some best practices, more for maybe like looking at ageism and how we need to work together to analyze that. It might be a little bit academic, I'm not quite sure, but it will be a really important session as well, just looking at the connection between elder abuse and ageism, and how we can, move forward in terms of supporting older adults. And we also, We also have one the following day. The date's wrong. It's supposed to be the 8th. I apologize. So on the 8th, we're also talking with 2 physicians around closing the gap and promoting health and dignity for Black older adults. Very well-known physicians in this area. So they're going to be sharing their wealth of knowledge and experience in this. And for the Francophone older adults across Ontario, we have a session on the 15th on powers of attorney. So that communication is also on our website. So, and links to sign up. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that, I encourage you to sign up. There's a number of other ones that are just kind of in finalizing right now too. So you can check those in our website for Francophone community on sexual abuse in French with an organization that works with older women in the Francophone community. Lastly, I just want to thank everyone for attending today. We do appreciate you coming out and learning more about this and how to protect your money and manage your money. We do appreciate if you take a moment to do the evaluation. If you take your phone, if you have you're tech savvy a little bit, don't even have to be. Just take your camera on your phone, just hover over the QR code and it'll come up with a link. If you click that, it'll take you right to the survey and you can do it in 2 seconds. It's like 10 questions, very, very quick. We've actually adapted it to make it a lot shorter for people to fill in. So again, we do appreciate your feedback. Today, as most people may or may not be aware of, today is Giving Tuesday. As many organizations, we are also seeking, your support to continue the work that we do in our outreach and education to provide sessions such as this and bring in our speakers. Every small action and small act of kindness makes a really big difference in the lives of older adults across Ontario. So if you feel able to donate in some way, whether you want to volunteer maybe for an elder abuse network or financially, it's always greatly appreciated. And I know there are some network members here on our webinar, Pamela, who did talk about the government levels, always looking for volunteers. So you can check out to see if there's a elder abuse network in your region on our website. See if you want to become involved somehow. And again, here's the QR code if you're interested in providing financial donation to our organization as well. And this is my contact information, our website. If you're, we also are on social media, a big presence on a regular basis. We're constantly on Twitter and Facebook promoting not only our events, but also events from other organizations. And we've just started the 16 days of activism to address violence against women. So you'll be seeing a lot of posts coming up in regards to that as well. So thank you, Richard. Thank you for our interpreters. Did a wonderful job as always, and for our participants joining us. And we look forward to you coming to our next sessions. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks.